Welcome back. As events unfold in Japan, exposure to radiation has been a topic of increasing concern here in the United States. Dr. Nancy Snyderman joins us live now with the reality on what risks radiation can pose. And Nancy, thanks so much for your time tonight. I guess we should start. Let's start with a baseline understanding of what radiation exposure really is. What are we talking about here every day? How much radiation does the average person come in contact with, for instance?
We come in contact with radiation every day, everything from our solar planet to radon in the soil to the average X-ray that a person may get when just getting your teeth X-rayed or getting a chest X-ray. But what concerns people, I think, in an episode like this is that there could be a huge spike in the amount of radiation. So the government has set sort of norms, but in some of these nuclear reactions, and for people who've been near the epicenter, their exposure has been 100 to 10,000 times what the average yearly amount would be. And the concern then is radiation poisoning or sickness and the long-term cancer risks.
Nancy, the folks there in Japan, they're being told to stay inside. Would that really save you from radiation exposure?
Well, it can. For people who've been exposed, as you know, many people have really been just soaked in soap and water and hosed off. That at least gets the surface contamination off. If you can't get away from the irradiated area, then something as simple as duct tape can keep the irradiated air out. It really, Brian, is the irradiated material in the air settling down on you or in your environment. And long term, it means getting in the soil, getting in the grass. The cow eats the grass. The cow then has contaminated milk, and that's how these things get into our food supply. But for people who maybe aren't near the aren't near the epicenter, are worried more about the jet stream, there really is great, I think, affirmation that a lot of this is going to be dissipated by air currents, and so the chance of a lot of this reaching the United States is really not very probable.
Well, we did see some concern today. Iodine, as we know, it's been given out on the ground in Japan as a protective measure. Here in the U.S., though, on the West Coast, and we're even getting some reports here in West Michigan, stores running out of iodine as people show concern about radiation. Let's talk about that, and I guess, is that panic warranted?
On the web. Yeah, it's not warranted. And if you get on the line today, you're going to see on a lot of websites basically that this is Armageddon.
Right.
So for people who are going into irradiated areas and want to protect their thyroids from thyroid cancer, yes, there might be a role for taking the thyroid iodine ahead of time. But for most of us, it's not warranted at all. And here's why. One, if you don't know your dose, you could take too much. If you're allergic to it or if you have a shellfish allergy, you could in fact do yourself more harm. And your 12-year-old's dosage and yours may not even be the same. The chance of this kind of irradiation getting to Michigan is so negligible, but there are so many doomsdayers out there that I think they're really stoking the fire. So if anything, just sit back. I think our hearts can break for what's going on with the Japanese people, but there is no reason for those of us in the United States to panic at this time.
All right, sober words. Dr. Nancy Snyderman, the Chief Medical Editor for NBC News. We appreciate your time tonight, Nancy, and of course,
you bet.
A lot more on this story tonight on NBC Nightly News with Brian Williams. Plus, Lester Holt is in Japan with more on the panic surrounding new explosions at the nuclear plant. NBC Nightly News at 6:30 right here on Wood TV 8.